Imagine living on a quiet, beautiful island where doors are left unlocked, and the loudest sound at night is the wind off the sea. Then, one evening, a masked figure steps out of the dark. He knows your route. He knows when your house goes quiet. He knows when the lights will go out, and he always seems to vanish before anyone can catch him. This is the story of the Beast of Jersey, a case that shook a small community for decades and still leaves hard questions behind. Before we dive in, if you enjoy deep dive investigations, please hit like and subscribe, and please keep dropping a comment telling me where you're watching from. I read those every time, and it honestly makes my day to see our little map of viewers grow. Thank you. And now, let's go to the story. The island that slept with its windows open. Jersey is the largest of the Channel Islands, sitting between England and France. In the 1950s, it looked like a postcard. Small lanes, green fields, and a coastline that could make anyone stop and stare. Crime was low. People knew each other. Many families had lived there for generations. But history also left marks. During World War II, German forces occupied the island. People learned how to be careful, how to listen, and how to keep secrets. After the war, the island wanted calm and normal life again. That calm did not last. In the late 1950s, fear began to move like a cold wind through the streets. The news spoke of a man who attacked at night. He seemed to choose moments when people were most vulnerable. A long walk home, a quiet house, a sleeping child. No one knew his face. Soon the island gave him a name, the Beast of Jersey. First shadows. The bus stop attacks, 1957 to 1959. On a November night in 1957, a nurse stood at a bus stop. It was late, and the street was mostly empty. Out of the dark, a man rushed her. He tied a rope around her neck and dragged her into a nearby field. He assaulted her and ran. She needed stitches. She told the police her attacker hid his face with a scarf and spoke with a strange Irish-sounding accent, almost like he was pretending. She also remembered a musty odor, something old and damp, like a coat left too long in a basement. Months later, in March 1958, another woman walking from a bus stop was attacked in almost the same way. Then in July, a third woman. The pattern was clear. The island, which once felt small and safe, now felt small and trapped. Police noted repeating details: the rope, the fields, the fake accent, the smell. Sometimes they found empty cigarette packets at the scene. Witnesses thought the man was around 40, average build, wearing a long coat. But there was not enough to identify him. The fear spread faster than the facts. In August 1959, a fourth woman was attacked. This time she fought back. The attacker ran. The police felt sure these crimes were connected. The community felt sure too. The question was, who? A new tactic, breaking into houses. 1960 to 1961. The man changed his method. In early 1960, he moved from the streets to the bedrooms of people's homes. On February 14th, 1960, a 12-year-old boy woke to a bright light shining into his eyes. A man stood at the end of his bed. The boy was tied with a rope, dragged outside, and assaulted. The attacker then brought him back home and left. The investigation showed the intruder had climbed in through a window. In March 1960, a 25-year-old woman walking to a bus stop accepted a ride from a man who said he was a doctor going to pick up his wife. Inside the car, he tied her up, assaulted her, and drove away with her. She found a moment, escaped, and shouted for help. The man sped off. He had almost taken her with him into the dark. Another night, a mother and her 14-year-old daughter were at home in a remote part of the island. Near midnight, the phone rang. When the mother answered, she heard only a strange clicking sound. She hung up and went back to bed. Then the lights went out. The phone line had been cut. A noise downstairs. The mother fought someone in the dark and ran to the neighbors for help. But the intruder went upstairs. He found the daughter. He followed the same ritual as before, and he escaped. Months later, a 14-year-old girl woke to the sound of someone in her room. A figure stood at the end of her bed, wearing a mask. She screamed. This time, the intruder fled without touching her. The mask, hard, ugly, unforgettable, would become part of the legend. Between July 1960 and April 1961, 4 children between 8 and 12 years old were taken from their beds and assaulted in fields. The island felt like it was under siege. Parents started checking windows twice, then a third time. Dogs were kept in hallways. Men kept watch by the door. The beast had changed from street ambusher to night invader. He studied houses. He planned. He seemed to know when people slept and how to move in a place without waking anyone. Until it was too late, the police bring in outside help. Local police knew they needed more resources. They asked Scotland Yard for help, and a respected detective named Jack Manning joined the case. He pushed for systematic work, re-interviewing witnesses, mapping times and locations, and organizing watch groups. Newspapers printed advice and even handed out small toolkits for residents, notes, checklists, ways to help track suspicious movement in their area. Police also took a bold step. They asked for fingerprints from every man on the island. Men could refuse, but almost all agreed. Only 13 men did not give prints. This detail would become important later. The island needed a suspect. Whispers started about a local recluse named Alphonse. He liked to walk at night. He owned a raincoat. He did not fit in. Police searched his house more than once and could not connect him to the crimes. But rumor is stronger than paper. One night, angry locals burned his house. Afraid for his life, Alphonse fled the island and lived in exile nearby. For a time after he left, the attack stopped. People told themselves, maybe it was him after all, but the quiet did not last. The attacks returned, 1963, and then silence. In April 1963, a 9-year-old boy was attacked. Later that year, an 11-year-old boy, then a 10-year-old girl and a 16-year-old boy. The pattern, the method, the fear, it was all the same. And then suddenly, nothing. For more than 2 years, there were no known attacks. Some people thought the beast had left. Others thought he had died. The police waited. A letter in the dark, 1966. The quiet ended with a letter. It arrived in 1966, mocking, cold, and signed by the Beast of Jersey. The writer said the police were wasting their time. He talked about a perfect crime. He said when the moon was very bright in September, he would strike again, not once, but twice. He promised more clues. He said he liked playing with the police. In August 1966, a 15-year-old girl was attacked. During the assault, the attacker told her again and again, "Do you know how long it takes to kill a woman?" 5 minutes. It was a terrifying threat. The second attack, the letter promised did not happen. Maybe something interrupted him. Maybe the letter was partly a trick. But the message had landed. The beast was back, and he was not afraid to taunt the island. Another child. Another night. 1970. In August 1970, A 13-year-old boy woke to a bright light. He was led outside, assaulted, and brought home with a warning. If he told anyone, his parents would be killed. The boy tried to keep quiet. By morning, his parents saw something was wrong. He told them. The investigation grew again. By this time, police had done thousands of interviews. They had followed countless tips. They had patrols, road checks, and neighborhood watches. They had patterns and maps and theories. But they did not have a name that would stick. Not yet. A chase at the traffic lights, July 10, 1971. 2 police officers were on night patrol. A car shot past them at high speed. The officers followed. The driver tried to shake them, even driving on the wrong side of the road. The chase ended in a crash. The driver ran. The officers caught him and took him in. Back at the station, the details clicked into place. The man wore a long coat with a musty smell, like the one victims described. On his wrists were bands with nails sticking out. Inside his coat, spikes. In his pockets, a flashlight, a wig, and a mask. The mask, the one people whispered about, the one that turned a man into a nightmare. His name was Edward Paisnell, pronounced Pazinel. He was 46. He had grown up on Jersey. He was married and had a daughter and 2 stepchildren. He did odd jobs and helped at a children's foster home run by his wife's family. Children there called him Uncle Ted. He brought them sweets and dressed up as Santa at Christmas. To many people, he seemed kind and helpful. To the police in that room, holding the mask in a plastic bag, he looked like something else entirely. When detectives questioned him about the mask and the outfit, he said very little. When they pushed and suggested what they believed, that he was the Beast of Jersey, he told them, "Prove it." The hidden room. Police searched his home. He lived in an annex attached to his wife's house. In his private space, they found a hidden room. Inside were multiple wigs and masks, raincoats stained with fluids, and a strong, old, damp smell, like the one survivors had reported. The walls held photographs of victims' houses, taken from different angles. He seemed to have studied entrances, windows, paths, and hedges. He prepared. He waited. He chose his nights. There was also an altar with books on the occult and items used for strange rites. Some said he performed animal sacrifices before he went out on attacks. The police noted it all. In court, prosecutors would argue that he built a private world, a dark theater where he changed his face and fed a fantasy of power and control. 2 details from the old crimes now made new sense. First, that Irish-sounding accent. Paisnell did not speak with one. It was part of a disguise. Second, the cigarette packets found at scenes. Paisnell was not a smoker. Those packets were likely planted to mislead the police and suggest a different kind of suspect. He'd played with evidence the way he said he liked to play with the police, by giving false trails. And there was a final bitter fact. When the police had asked all men on the island for fingerprints, 13 had refused. Paisnell was one of those 13. If investigators had focused harder on that small group, perhaps the case would have ended earlier. It is hard to say, but that number, 13, would sit in the file like a warning label about missed opportunities. Jekyll-and-Hyde. The trial began in November 1971. Prosecutors laid out the timeline, the methods, the physical evidence from the car and the house, and the statements from survivors. They described the hidden room and the photographs, the wigs and the mask. They talked about his interest in dark rituals and his strange admiration for a figure from medieval history, Gilles de Rais, a French nobleman linked to horrifying crimes against children. This part was background and motive, not proof, but it painted a picture of his mind and obsessions. It was hard for many islanders to connect Uncle Ted, the man who gave gifts at Christmas and fixed things around the foster home, with the masked attacker who cut phone lines and studied people's houses at night. The newspapers used a familiar phrase, Jekyll-and-Hyde, in public kind, in private monstrous. The jury found Edward Pesnell guilty. He received a 30-year sentence. The community breathed out for the first time in many years. Parents slept a little easier. People began to walk after dark again. The beast was in a cell. After the verdict, a book, a debate, a scar. In 1972, Parnell's wife Joan published a book about the case. She said she had not known what he was doing. She said their marriage existed in name only, and they were not truly a couple. Some people believed her, others did not. The island was not only dealing with a criminal case, it was dealing with a social wound. Who do we trust? What signs did we miss? What do we do with doubt when the courts say the case is closed? As for Alphonse, the scapegoated recluse, he stayed in exile for years on a small island nearby. He called himself the king there and found a kind of peace among fishermen and tourists. He eventually returned to Jersey and lived to old age. His story is a reminder that fear can turn a crowd into a weapon. The wrong person can pay a price that can never be fully repaid. Release, return, and death. In 1991, after serving 20 years of his 30-year sentence, Pesnell was released early for good behavior. Authorities allowed him to return to Jersey. The news shocked residents. Protests and anger followed. He left and moved to the Isle of Wight. In 1994, he died of a heart attack. Some felt relief. Others felt it was too simple an ending for what he had done. Allegations beyond the conviction. Operation Rectangle, 2008. Years later, an investigation called Operation Rectangle looked into abuse at children's homes on Jersey, including the home connected to Pesnell's family. Some former residents said a masked man had climbed through windows at night. One witness said chloroform was used to remove sleeping children from their beds. Investigators even found shackles in the ground that could have been fixed to walls. These claims suggested a wider pattern of abuse, possible involvement by high-profile people in the 1960s, and cover-ups. But in terms of solid courtroom evidence against Pesnell for those specific incidents at the home, there was not enough to bring new charges. The allegations were serious and disturbing, and they left the community with heavy questions and lasting anger. Many potential witnesses had died or would not testify. That part of the story remains a shadow along the edge of the known facts. An unsolved death. Tula Hook, 1966. There is one more piece of this case that never fit neatly into a file. Tula Hook was a 20-year-old woman who worked on Jersey in the summer of 1965 and returned in 1966. On the night of December 30th, 1966, she went to catch a bus to see friends. People driving by saw her at the stop. She never got on the bus. The next morning, December 31st, someone found her body. Her head and face had been struck with a heavy object. Was this the beast of Jersey? The setup, a woman at a bus stop, matches the early attacks. Pesnell sometimes told victims he had killed, but the case is unsolved. No one has been convicted for Tula's death. The file remains open in spirit, if not in law. On a small island, unanswered questions echo a long time. How he operated, the blueprint of fear, to understand why it took so long to catch him, We need to see the plan inside his crimes. He studied. Photographs of homes show he watched families and learned their habits. He chose back windows, weak locks, dark hedges, and nights with good cover. He controlled the scene. He cut phone lines and electricity to produce chaos and fear. A phone call with clicking sounds might check who was awake or simply set nerves on edge. He disguised himself. The mask, wig, long coat, gloves, and fake accent meant no easy identification. Even the cigarette packets were props to mislead. He changed patterns. When streets were watched, he moved into houses. When patrols focused on a set of hours, he shifted within that window. He paused long enough to make police think he was gone, then returned. He threatened. He told victims he would kill them or their parents if they spoke. He used a bright light at first contact, a simple but effective tactic to shock someone awake and blind them for a moment. He traveled. Jersey is small, but he used cars and back roads. His capture began not with a tip, but with a traffic violation and a chase. Luck favors the prepared, but it also favors the persistent. The cost of rumors and the price of patience. The destruction of Alphonse's home shows the danger of conclusions built on fear. He walked at night. He had a coat. He was different. These are not crimes. When the island burned his house, it burned a piece of its own trust and fairness. Meanwhile, the real attacker watched and waited. On the other side, the police did many things right. Coordination with Scotland Yard, fingerprints, watch groups, public cooperation. But they also missed something. The list of the 13 men who refused prints. Why was that list not chased hard and fast? We cannot know how things looked from inside the case, and it is easy to judge with hindsight. Still, it is a lesson about narrowing the field when you can and never letting a small, stubborn detail escape follow-up. The mask comes off. When detectives lifted the mask from Paynell's pocket and later found the hidden room, the case moved from rumor and fear to evidence. The room showed intent and planning. The items showed a ritual around the crimes. The photographs showed surveillance. The coat showed a smell that tied the man to memories. In court, the story came together in a line that a jury could follow. There is no single miracle moment in most investigations. There are hundreds of small steps. Here, the biggest step was also one of the simplest. A pair of officers seeing a speeding car and doing their job. What remains? Jersey is still beautiful. It is still a place where the sea and cliffs meet, and where summer feels like a gift. But the story of the beast left a mark. People remember the fear of sleeping with the lights off. They remember the rumors and the anger. They remember the day the police said the case was closed, and the day, years later, when the man was released and allowed to come back. Some wounds heal. Some turn into scars you touch now and then, just to remind yourself what you survived. For investigators, the case is a study in pattern recognition and public communication. For communities, it is a lesson about vigilance without violence, about protecting one another without turning into a mob. For survivors, it is part of a private story that no documentary or book can fully carry. We can tell what happened. We cannot fully feel it for them. Closing thoughts. The Beast of Jersey hid his face for years. He dressed in a way that turned him into a monster in the minds of his victims and the public. But when the mask came off, the man behind it was someone many people knew. Someone who visited a children's home, brought sweets, and played Santa. That duality is part of what makes the case so frightening. Evil can look ordinary until it does not. if we look back at the whole timeline, the bus stop attacks, the break-ins, the letter, the chase, one thing stands out. Persistence matters. Survivors came forward. Officers kept patrolling. People kept watching. And in the end, a simple traffic stop became the thread that pulled off the mask. Your turn. What do you think was the single biggest missed opportunity in this case? The one thing that, if handled differently, might have brought the beast to justice years earlier? Was it the failure to follow up on the 13 men who refused to give fingerprints, the rush to blame Alphonse, or something else entirely? If you found this investigation valuable, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who loves true crime told simply. And don't forget to comment where you're watching from. I really do read those and love seeing our community all over the map. Thanks for spending time with me today. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next story.